forward, we are once again ready to change the visual narrative, setting stage for the session that's coming up next. We're turning into another defining pillar of India's unstoppable growth story, ladies and gentlemen, and that is its technology workforce. India's tech talent pool has evolved into a global engine of innovation, supplying the skills, digital capabilities, and entrepreneurial drive that power transformation across industries worldwide. Let's take a look at this specially curated visual backdrop. Because talent is not just supporting growth, it is accelerating the growth in our country. And that brings us, ladies and gentlemen, to the next session of Hope 2026. Because beyond demand and digital ecosystems lies a critical question. And the question is, who is building, who is funding, and how is the capital being deployed? Our next conversation shifts the lens towards ownership, capital allocation, and the evolving mindsets of investment that is shaping hotel development in India. From asset owners to capital strategists, building hotel portfolios in a new India brings together leaders representing ownership groups, institutional capital, and public sector development, each playing a pivotal role in defining how hotel portfolios are being created, structured, and scaled today. So without further ado, let's welcome our very distinguished panelists onto the stage, please. Ladies and gentlemen, we have Mr. Aditya Pande, Mr. Ashank Kothari, Mr. Atul Dangayach, Mr. Sanjeev Jaiswal, coming onto the stage, being part of this panel and ready to share their expertise with us. And drawing the best out of them is Mr. Anuj Puri.
Hey, Sean. Hi. Chris.
If you've had some great learning so far in the day, let's give them a big round of applause and get this energy for this panel going, please. Over to you, Mr. Puri.
Thank you very much, and very good afternoon to all of you. I have a super eclectic panel, well-accomplished people on this panel. We've got about 37 minutes. I have like 130 questions to ask in 37 minutes, so I'm going to try and cover as many as I can. Thank you very much for coming in, and you know, the discussion is going to be about from asset owners to capital strategists, how we're going to be able to build the new India. Yes. That is what the discussion is going to be. Aditya, if I can come to you as the group CEO of InterGlobe Enterprises. My first question straight into you is that at scale, who really owns the value in hospitality? And you know, it's a question that I've been always thinking is that who owns the value in the hospitality? Is it the brand that owns the value? Is it the asset owner? Or is it the distribution network?
Thanks, Anuj. I think it's tough to say that anybody in particular owns the value.
Good point.
I think the reality is that all these three are extremely important for you know, the industry to progress. I think all three are interconnected in any way. I don't think you can put a weightage on a particular thing. But honestly, if you ask me, the real value driver is the customer.
Is the customer.
Customer will define what brand is she going to. Customer will define, you know what service levels they are looking for, and eventually, you know, where do they really want this to lead? So, and it's very difficult to say, you know, one is bigger than the other, or, you know, I think they all come together. But I think it starts with the customer, and pretty much they are the ones who will then define, you know, who really, what do they really value? You know, that's what brings it up.
And then very aptly said is, it is true is, and it's my mistake that I should have also put in the customer, but it is true is, you know, ultimately you're doing all this for the customer and they define it. Given that you're like the biggest boy in the aviation, when you control the demand engine, through aviation, do you underwrite hotels differently from a traditional owner? Here we have a traditional owner sitting here. Do you underwrite sort of differently because you control the demand through aviation?
At a macro level, we do look at travel and tourism as an industry, as a group. So I think that's very important to us. But I think it just stops there. The reality is that the aviation business and the hotel business run totally independently. There is no real sharing of data. There is none, right? I mean, so there is not as if, one is sharing data with the other. I mean, they're totally differently run companies. So hotel is the standard thing, right? I mean, you would own an asset, you will see, where that asset is located, you will see what the revenue drivers of the assets are. The underpinning, obviously, is the economy. Underpinning is an underserved market. So you get the value through that. So it's a very traditional way of underwriting, hospitality. Aviation definitely drives the demand. The demand definitely comes, the demand driver initially is aviation. But the reality is that, if you drive the demand to a particular location, and you don't provide quality, hotel infrastructure, demand is really also going to evaporate.
Exactly.
So in some ways, so aviation does bring you the demand, but it has to get served by the hotel world.
Ashank, Aditya can bring in the demand, but ultimately it needs to be served by hotel. And there are very few large institutional capital providers like yourselves who've made a significant investment in the hospitality. So my question is, what makes Indian hospitality investable for large global institutional capital investors like yourselves?
I mean, look, it's the reason why we all are here. If I look at the public equities in hospitality in the last 10 years, we've gone from a 20,000 crore market cap as a sector to about 250,000 crores this year.
What, 10 years?
10 years.
It was 20,000 crores?
25,000 crores. And now it's 250,000 crores. So you've gone about 12 times in 10 years. So there's definitely capital. There's definitely capital that wants to be in hospitality. It's a question of, there's a lot of structural tailwinds in the country today in terms of demand supply. And, I mentioned this in my earlier discussion as well, that, capital has been very selective in the last 10 to 15 years in terms of where to invest, which has kept this demand supply gap very healthy and has allowed, owners to finally start, improving their ADRs, occupancies, and margins, which is creating this very interesting dynamic. The government has done a fantastic job of building, world-class airports, infrastructure connecting cities, airlines have really stepped up, brands have really stepped up in creating world-class experiences. So it's a confluence of events that have happened, which allow us as capital providers to, think about, this being a more investable universe than it's ever been in the past.
And Ashank, I've known you and the group for a period of time, and you've done an exceptional job on the offices and where there is a stable income. And I heard you this morning speak as well, why hotels are not going to get into the REIT so quickly. So my question is, how do you price cyclicality, in this hospitality compared to offices that you're very used to, or even infrastructure, where you have done a fair amount of investment? And then this morning only you said is that it is very difficult because, these are perhaps...
You reprice the rooms every night.
You reprice the rooms every night, which is also, you said, is an advantage.
It's an advantage.
Because in an inflationary market it is, but in a cyclicality, it goes down as well. So how do you price it?
Yeah, look, real estate is a cyclical sector, right? Whether it's office, retail, hospitality. Hospitality is always the first one to get impacted and benefited, right? So when the economy turns, because you're pricing it every day, hospitality will get impacted hardest. But when the economy is recovering, hospitality is also the first sector that will always, have the sharpest and fastest recovery. We don't look at just the troughs or the peaks. We try and create when we're underwriting hotel investments, we try and create a stable cash flow profile. And we, of course, sensitize how different scenarios will play out. And we look at, ultimately we look at, can our cost of capital get covered? Do our debt covenants allow us to have this volatility? We make sure we structure our debt. Padu in the morning was, he hit the nail on the head. take long-term debt, have covenant light, have a moratorium. So we do all of those things to ensure that the capital is protected to allow us to go through these cycles. And it is a cyclical business, right? But if you get your fundamentals right of quality, location, and the right alignment with the operator, there's a lot of magic you can create.
If I can take the liberty to ask you one more, would Brookfield back a lot of the individual trophy asset owners who are sitting in here, or are you only going to back scalable platforms?
So, good question. The way I'll say it is that, look, I have seen so many portfolios with 5,000 keys that I will not touch. So technically it's scalable because it's 5,000 keys or large inventory, and I would never touch them from an investment standpoint. And I've seen portfolios or assets with 200 keys or 400 keys that I think are very attractive and very interesting. So it's not the size of the portfolio or trophy, single asset versus scalable platform. I don't think that's how we think about investments. Yes, there is a practical question that we always will tackle, that the return on time invested has to be significant for us. It has to be strategic, it has to be meaningful. And we have different ways to tackle that question in our own system. But I would say for individual asset owners and portfolios or platforms that are trying to scale, I think the quality and the can an institutional framework be applied on your asset? That becomes the key question for us. Can I take a brand and an operator and put it on your asset, and can it perform better, right? So those become very important questions for us. Is the quality right? Is the bones right? Is the structure right? Is the counterparty? The diligence will check through, the compliance, governance. So all table stake stuff, but that's really what goes in our mind when we're thinking about selecting an opportunity or not.
Very, very, very well put together. Sanjeev, I'm going to come to you. I'm delighted that, Mandeep, this time you've been able to get in government presence as a stakeholder, because I do feel as that last time we missed it, and Ashank, you referred it as well. Government being a part of this is, here we have capital providers, Sanjeev, here we have hotel owners, here we have the demand generation people is, and you are sitting in the center. Literally the center of that is, which is the government.
That was by default, but.
By default, government is the center. Only is.
Government is omnipresent. So, like I always keep on saying this, that even when you sleep, government is present over there.
Yes.
At least in our country.
My question to you is, sir, if Maharashtra wants to become a hospitality investment magnet, what is one or two structural reforms that you believe cannot be delayed in hospitality?
See, if any state, whether it is Maharashtra or any state in the country, if at all it has to be a magnet for attracting the hospitality segment, then I personally feel there are two major requirements. One is either at the national level or at the state level, just like you have a building development code, you have your fire code, everything. Similarly, you should have a hospitality development code.
Interesting. Interesting.
That is point number one. The point number two is that we should have, if I put it on a very lighter note, a statewide enforceable no surprise regime. Why do I say a no surprise regime? Because, you see, this is a segment for which the gestation period itself is very high. To touch the break even, and maybe to ensure that the positive cash flow starts. It takes not less than, say, if it's a branded name, then maybe 5 years. If it's a upcoming company or institution, it could be anywhere near 7 to 10 years. And then is that where you start growing. Now, in this scenario, whether it is the urban local body, like a municipal corporation, or it is the state government, or it is the central government, regimes keep on changing. And what is noticed is that whenever there is a regime change, I'm not saying anything against a political power change. Please don't quote me anywhere. But wherever there's a regime change, it seems that everyone tries to pull in the decisions that were taken before. So that is why I said, make a hospitality development code, and make a statewide enforceable no surprise regime. So these are the two main elements which I personally feel as a bureaucrat should be incorporated if this segment has to grow.
I would absolutely give a round of applause to that, second point that you said is, I think हमारे सबके दिल के अंदर था, but we were not able to articulate it. So thank you very much. The way that you've been able to position it, beautifully, because it is a long gestation asset class. I mean, if you were to ask anyone here is, it's a 7-10 year, and hence you want continuity. Otherwise, you're going to price risk. The way Ashank said is that otherwise you have to price risk. And the moment you start to price risk, the premiums start to go up, and then becomes very difficult to do scale because the cost of capital then starts to increase. Sanjeev ji, my next one. Can state land agencies like yourselves realistically think like long-term capital partners, or they're structurally constrained to just short-term monetization?
See, as far as Maharashtra is concerned, which obviously Mumbai being the financial capital of not only India, but maybe one of the most important centers in the world globally. Every organization has a different rules, standards pertaining to either the disposal of land or leasing the land. If I were to speak about MHADA, we typically lease land for 30 years, and then it is renewable for another 30 and so on. There are organizations like MIDC, SIDCO, who sell the land, MHADA. The various corporations are there. So as I said, there's no universal policy as such in terms of land leasing, but the basic point that you're trying to say is that, yes, definitely land as a component can be made available in whatever is the format of leasing out or selling it, or selling the FSI. For this segment, and I personally feel that with the change in approach, like if I were to talk about MHADA, see, from an individual redevelopment of buildings, in the last 1.5 years, if you must have noticed, we are going in for cluster redevelopment.
True.
And when I say cluster redevelopment, only in Mumbai, around 800 to 1,000 acres, which is roughly spelled out to 40 lakh square meter of land.
What are you saying? Bombay?
Yeah, Mumbai.
Really?
I say Mumbai because अभी careful रहो, गोवा में हो, कोई बात नहीं है, वापस मुंबई जाना है आपको, मुंबई जाना है।
नहीं, मुंबई only.
हाँ, मुंबई बोलिए बेटर रहेगा, नहीं तो यहाँ से कोई बोलेगा कि देखो वहाँ पे अनुज पुरी जाके बॉम्बे बोल रहा था।
Right.
But now, what is this going to entail? This is going to entail that, okay, fine, rehab will take place, people will get a very nice, livable house, the livability index will improve, the happiness index will improve, but at the same time, the commodity which is most scarce right now,
absolutely,
in all the metropolitan cities, and especially Mumbai and
more so
MMR,
Bombay.
you are getting land available which is free of cost. The land is free for the simple reason that the FSI is traded. So if you have big players like, of the clusters that have gone, like say whether it is Motilal Nagar, Bandra Reclamation is going to be coming out soon, whether it is GTB Nagar, Abhyuday Nagar, you just name it. Adarsh Nagar, Aram Nagar, SVP Nagar, and these are all best of the locations. A lot of land will be coming up for this mixed use. So this is where the opportunity is there. If I were to speak about Pan Maharashtra, then obviously Nagpur being Mihan, the Atal Setu connectivity has brought that part of Navi Mumbai very close to us. The coastal road expansion, which right now is still the ceiling, but which is being extended to Versova and further to Mira Bhayandar and later on going to Vasai. If you see the other network systems, the Samruddhi corridor, which is a 700 kilometer, the travel time between Nagpur and Mumbai has come down. If you see the proposed Shaktipeeth road, which is like Nagpur, Mumbai to Goa, or if you see the Vasai-Virar multimodal corridor, the metro network in Mumbai is and remember, is 307 kilometers. That is what is planned. The new airport at Navi Mumbai has got operational. When it was going to touch its peak, it is going to be 60 million passengers, apart from cargo. The biggest port is coming up in Wadhwan. And with a 20-meter shaft depth, at its peak, it is going to handle cargo, which is going to be 3 times more than JNPT and all combined. Now, what I'm saying is that inevitably, these are all going to be centers where workforce
Yes.
high-collar jobs, and the service industry will move in. So even if it is different agencies, these land can be definitely seen as a capital asset, which can go either on any of the models I mentioned. And before I just end this, there are three statistics which are very interesting. The first is that if you see the investment which has come, obviously not only in hotel industry, but I'm saying the hospitality sector, in 2025, we had almost 397 million US dollars investment which came in this segment, which was a 17% increase. And it is predicted that by 2028, this segment is going to attract almost $1 billion. Second is, if you see the average occupancy rate, that is also very decent, is hovering between 69 to 71%. And the third aspect is that if you see the ARR, in terms of the key, it has gone up to 8,100 to 8,200. But these are all data which is there at the national portal. So it just means that there is going to be a very big demand. What we just need to do is incorporate three things in that. One, a time-bound approval system. Two, a single window clearance. Three is what we say, a title platform, in the sense that the lands which can be made available, whether it is a tourism-oriented segment, whether it is a city-oriented segment, or whether it is where it is a conglomerate of industries and other centers. So any land parcel which is there, what is the status, what is the title, what are the clearances required, what is there and what is not there. This should be made available in a single platform where you can see it. And third is what the Niti Aayog is doing, that you should have a model code of contract system. And maybe with that, what I would add on to it is that this whole process should be seen on the online data, so it is transparent, seen to all. See, obviously you guys are expert, but my personal view is that what does the financial investors or the bankers or the PE firms or whatever be it, what are they looking for? It's not the question that they don't want to invest or they don't want to fund this segment. They are only searching for a predictability assurance.
Very true. Absolutely. And that's what Ashank also said, is that we need predictability.
So once that is done,
then the
cash flow itself will follow. And I would say that, like the way we are growing as an economy. So like if from $2.9 billion, we could touch up to 2.9 trillion to 3.7 in 4 years or 5 years, which is almost 20% increase. Aspiring to be a 5 trillion economy by 27 end or 28 early, a little earlier than 2030 that was predicted. And as a part of the Viksit Bharat, where we are aspiring to be a $30 trillion by 2047. And with a GDP growth rate of almost 6.5 to 7%, though this year the estimate is that it may go up to almost 7.5. And in that, Maharashtra aspiring to be a 1 trillion economy by 2030. Mumbai metropolitan region aspiring to become a 300 billion economy by 2030. I personally feel, and this is the status across all the big cities in the country, I personally feel that in the coming days, if the rules are simplified, transparent, and as I said, if approvals given once is protected with a standard document, which is binding on both the parties, the best is yet to come. India is going to rock for the next 10 to 15 years because we have a major shortage in terms of number of keys that we have.
Awesome, awesome. Atul, after this, we need to get you to Mumbai, Maharashtra. I mean, look at it. If there is nearly $1 trillion that is going to come in from Maharashtra as GDP contribution by 2030, I think you need to try and see make a move here. But I'll start with you, Atul. Is luxury in India a long-term compounding story or a supply constraint story, vulnerable to oversupply?
Thanks, Anuj, for having me on the panel. I believe India luxury is a long-term compounding story. It may behave like a short-term supply constraint, but I think it's a long-term story with the rising middle class, high aspirations. But the risk lies when too much capital chases this segment, or too much capital is chasing a particular micro market, right? That's where the risk lies. But I think overall it's a long-term story, especially for disciplined capital, disciplined owners, and a very disciplined approach with the right markets. This is a story which is going to stay in luxury in India. I believe that.
Atul, just continuing with you, when you're expanding in emerging markets, what is more dangerous? Is it underestimating infrastructure gaps or overestimating pricing power?
Clearly, pricing power, infrastructure gaps will get fulfilled with airport expansions, road network improvements, but sometimes we overestimate pricing power in certain emerging markets because these smaller markets have, price-conscious consumers, corporates have limits on how much they can pay, and when you underwrite the deal and the ADR only supports 70% of that underwriting ADRs, then of course the whole underwriting goes for a toss, right? And so I think pricing power is something I would say.
One of the questions that I struggle to think is, how do owners like yourselves really institutionalize decision-making without diluting the entrepreneurial conviction?
Interesting question. Institutionalization for us should bring discipline to conviction. As a entry level or initial owners, a lot of decisions are made by instincts. True. We see something, it's a gut feeling, we love it, we want to own it. But as you grow, I think it's so important to have that decision. So data-driven approach, more institutional framework, very disciplined capital allocation. So I think institutionalization, is very important when we are growing as ownership. And I think we have to balance both approaches, where instinct also has to play a role, but I think we have to do more data-driven approach and look at the depth of the market, the ADRs going, the demand generators coming up, networks, what's happening around the city. There's so much more that's involved than just instinct at that point for us, yeah.
Yeah, and I agree with you, is that it is, initial days, it is about conviction, it is about gut feeling, but how do you bring in the data and yet have that gut feel and conviction is a balance that needs to be put together if you're going to go up to scale.
Correct, yeah, and we've learned from these players like Brookfield of the world, and we know if we have to cooperate at that level, we have to bring that framework internally in our company and look at every deal from their lens and say, how can we look different than other ownership? Yes. Why are we doing this? And why do we want to get into this? There's a lot of whys and a lot of data approach which is going into these things.
Chris, thank you very much for being on the panel. Chris is the founder and managing director of Soho House India. So, clearly, very aspirational brand who's in Bombay, now expanded to Mumbai, now expanded to Delhi, as well as. So my question is, when growth pressures rise, what comes first, exclusivity or expansion? Chris, you can take this.
All right, thank you. Thanks, Anuj. Exclusivity for us comes first. I think because our business depends on exclusivity, it's a members club, it's exclusive by nature, it's also quite a luxury product. So if you sacrifice your exclusivity, then you don't have a business. So it's a fantastic business because when you overlay a normal hotel and hospitality business with a layer of membership, obviously you're adding a stickiness, increased loyalty, increased revenues. But the downside is that to have a sort of business like this, it makes it very difficult to scale. And I think that's true of any luxury or super luxury business. When you scale, if you do it in the wrong way,
you dilute your brand and you lose your business. So for us, it's really important to maintain our exclusivity, maintain the luxury and the power of the brand. Having said that, I think we've just got one asset, so it's amazing to sit on this platform with all these guys with huge portfolios. We're not that. We just have one asset in Mumbai. We've been open since 2018. We took maybe a little long to expand. We wanted to expand more quickly, but we had COVID, and that got in the way of our evolution. But we're working on Delhi, and Delhi will be open next year, God willing. It's great to hear that the authorities are going to be making things easier in terms of transparency and in terms of efficiency of getting all the permissions, because that's obviously a bit of a hurdle here in India as it is anywhere else. But anything that helps the process is very, very welcome. But so it is possible for a luxury brand and a brand based in exclusivity like Soho House to expand, as long as you do it in the right way, you do it carefully, you have the right property, and you build your business patiently and carefully and don't try and scale too quickly.
And I'll continue with that thought is, because now you have institutional capital that is backing you. So, my understanding is that institutional capital pushes you for scale. And if you're getting pushed for scale, how do you prevent brand dilution? Brand dilution.
I mean, you have to push back. I mean, you have to make sure that your investors understand the nature of the business, and if you scale too quickly, you'll destroy the business. As I just said, so it's very important to have the right investors. With our kind of business, as with any luxury brand, you need to be patient, and you need to have the supportive investors who understand that and understand the nature of the brand. If the investors really want to scale, or the market really needs you to scale in order to create value, then one route is potentially create a sub-brand. And obviously, a lot of hospitality brands have done that. A lot of retail brands have done that. So that is a way forward. I think for our business, the members club business in India, it's also possible to do that. I think that there is scope to
create a sub-brand.
So to create sub-brand, to create a brand which is more scalable. But it's not Soho House. Soho House needs to scale slowly because of the nature of the product.
And it was a similar conversation that Ashank had with Patu this morning, was to create a sub-brand to be able to scale without necessarily diluting the mother brand.
Can I chip into this?
Please, please.
With a socialist bend?
Yes.
So please bear with me if I say something right now which could maybe pinch anyone. Just an add-on to the question that you mentioned to him. You see, obviously everyone understands that the source of financing, and if you're talking about hospitality, is A, the promoter's equity. B is what I would say the financial institutions, whatever they lend out. Third is, if they have made it big, then you get yourself listed. And then you get the market share in terms of the bonds or the shares that you make out. And the fourth part is the government part, in which you get subsidy or you get investment reliefs or something. Like, for example, the tourism policy, which has been announced in 24, offers a lot of incentives for capital subsidy, for the state GST, for the electricity consumption, heritage properties if you're developing, or tourism segment. And even MTDC has leased out 30 properties on the PPP model. So this is fine. It's the rising star. Now, the point that I wanted to make in this is that, you see, everyone wants to be safe. But the question is, how safe? Now, the general understanding, maybe I'm wrong, you can correct me. You're also heading a very big financial institution, ANAROCK, jail. So, when you say, what is the parameters that you are going to see before you lend out, either as a banking institution, as a private equity firm, blah, blah, blah. The tendency is to see how big or how assured the turnover or the net worth of the promoters or the so-called the conglomerate, these are the criteria which you consider. Fair enough. You also can't lose the money because ultimately people are trusting you and putting funds in your this. My only question is that if we are talking about how to make it more inclusive, then I personally feel that all these financial institutions, the private equity firms, the bankers, they too also need to make a new model code of conduct for financing the newcomers, for financing the segments which are in the startups, and most importantly, for financing the self-entrepreneur who wants to enter this industry. Otherwise, it will only and only be an expansion of the branded names. With due respect, it will be Oberoi's, it will be Taj, it will be Hilton, it will be Marriott, it will be whatever be the brand. So my humble request using this platform to everyone who is in the financing segment, please make it a point to have a certain percentage of the lending that you have based on safety parameters. But obviously you will have to dilute some of the stringiness which is there.
For inclusive growth.
For inclusive growth in the hospitality segment.
Well said. Absolutely. We've got only 4 minutes left. I'm going to just do a one rapid fire question round, Ashank, starting with you. Growth premium or governance premium in your mind?
Governance premium.
Governance premium. I would have thought as well as
Growth premium without governance is
disaster.
just branded disaster.
Branded disaster. Atul, one risk you still lose sleep over?
Mistake in capital allocation, because once you're committed in hotels, it stays, the mistake stays on the balance sheet for a long time. We know occupancies will come and go, but a capital allocation mistake stays with you for a long time. So that's very careful about.
Sanjeev ji, one change India needs immediately.
Single window, time-bound approval.
सिंगल विंडो सर एक और विंडो है
नहीं सिंगल विंडो का मतलब ये है कि जितने विंडोज है उसको सबको एक प्लेटफॉर्म में ले आओ जैसे व्हाट इज बीइंग डन बाय नीति आयोग एंड इवन इफ यू सी द द मैत्री दिस व्हिच इज देयर फॉर द हाई इन्वेस्टमेंट इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर प्रोजेक्ट्स सी द प्रॉब्लम सॉरी इट वाज अ वन लाइनर सो वन लाइनर वाज सिंगल विंडो टाइम बाउंड अप्रूवल्स
गॉट इट Aditya, one word for India's hospitality decade ahead.
Honestly, it's platforms, but it'll have very different nodes. I think the world is changing. Consumer who's going to be paying us over the next 10, 20 years wants very different kind of spaces. The big box don't matter. They need more social spaces. They need more interactive spaces. I don't think the consumer who's not in this room today, but will be paying us in the next 20 years, will start demanding much more. So we need a platform, but it'll have multiple nodes in it.
Wow, fantastic. I agree. Chris, grow faster or stay exclusive? I think I know what your answer is.
Stay exclusive. Protect your brand. Grow your brand slowly. If it's a powerful brand, then you need time.
Yeah, no, absolutely, and different approach. I think I'll use Ashank's statement which he made this morning is that every cricket pitch, whether you're going to ball or bat, depends on who's playing in and how that day's situation is. So, for you, it may be very different. For someone in Ashank's shoes, as a Brookfield, may be different in different circumstances. And likewise, for the other asset owners, may be different. But clearly for you,
I would not sacrifice brand integrity for growth. I completely agree with you. I would just add that I'll invest a lot in my systems
to be able to scale it up.
To be able to scale it up. Right? Yes. So I don't think it's one or the either. I think it requires a very different mindset of building out platforms and, very different, like you said, just the muscle set is very different for building out platforms and creating those capabilities. But I would definitely not, compromise the brand because that is the lifeline of the business. And, you should never mess with that.
Yeah, well said, resounding +1. Completely agree. I think the brand dilution is an issue that we need to be really, really watchful of. And we're seeing it in places, so Completely, 100%.
And the only way that you can do it is what Ashank said, is that put in the processes, put in the system. You need the scale. I mean, you know, Aditya, you're the one on this platform who has the most scaled up operation. And, you know, without, I mean, InterGlobe, I don't know how many passengers a day that you...
380,000.
How much?
380,000.
380,000 passengers. I mean, without processes, system is a tough one. Sorry, final word from you, Chris.
Yeah, it's a challenge for every business, right? Not in the hospitality. How to grow your brand without diluting it. And that's what we all need to deal with day to day. And congratulations to all you guys who have done that successfully. We hope we be able to do that as well.
Thank you very much. A big round of applause to our panelists here. Thank you. Thank you very much. And I'm going to hand it back to you. Yes.
A big thank you to all the panelists for adding tremendous value to Hope 2026 by sharing their views on the panel today. And clearly, the discussions around ownership, capital allocation, and around long-term portfolio, they aren't theoretical in India, they're deeply operational. And I think we had a lot to learn from this panel. Let's give them a big round of applause, please.